Hi there, welcome to a special edition of Carnell Knowledge. My name is Tom Carnell. I have my new computer glasses on, so I'm looking studious. I'm here on a weekend to do one of our special episodes. I didn't want to do this on the normal Monday, Wednesday, Friday show. If you don't know, every week I do a show on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in which I review / recommend 5 movies, a book, and 5 records. I do this. I've been doing this for a few months now, and I'm really enjoying it. I hope you are too. But these weekend shows, I just wanted to pop on periodically and do things that don't really fit in with that format, just such as what I'm about to do now. This episode is about 10 books that influenced me both as a person and as a writer. I got some wild hair stuff going on right there. I apologize for that. But yeah, books that over the years have been important to me, have been sort of road signs, benchmarks, use the adjective that you will, things that have impressed me, that have influenced my way of thinking, and have taught me a thing or two about a thing or two, i.e. writing. I have written for years for different magazines. I wrote for Fangoria and Dread Central for about 15 years. And now I'm writing books. If you go to my Amazon page, you'll find a bunch of stuff. There's some novels there, and a bunch of short story collections, some interview books, that kind of thing. Anyway, talking about books that had some sort of impact. So we'll just go through the list, and we'll talk a little bit about each and every one of them. The first book I want to talk about is by Nan Gilbert, aka Mildred Geiger Gilbertson, who lived from 1908 to 1988. It was illustrated by Jill Elgin, who drew Black Cat, which was Harvey Comics' most popular female superhero. And it is called 365 Bedtime Stories. This was a book. It was first published in 1955. I think it was given to me in 1963. I was 3 years old. You can even see my grandmother's signature there. And what it is a collection of stories, one a day, little short bedtime stories for children about the residents of what was called Truffle Scudam's Lane, aka What a Jolly Street. It was a host of characters, everything from Miss Apricot to there were like 22 children that lived on the street. There were Mr. Gay's Handy Grocery there, an assortment of animals, Hustle Bustle the parrot, Butch the dog, Tom and Tiger the cats, Rusty, who was the Shetland pony owned by the Barretts, and Beppo the monkey. You can see the format of the book. They're just short little morality plays, little things, happenings that happened during a day, and taught a little very subtle lesson about what it was to be a good neighbor, a good person. And I loved this book. When I was a child, I mean, you could even see at some point, even I signed it down there with a little pencil, you can see. Absolutely wonderful. I recommend it still. I got a copy of it and gave it to my granddaughter, and it's just a thing that one of the first books that had a real impact on me as I was growing up. It's no great shakes as far as storytelling goes. Everything's very simple. Again, it's written for kids, so it's not going to be too in depth, but super fun, super enjoyable. Yeah, there you go. I enjoyed the book. I think you will too, especially if you have kids. They're just fun little stories. Second book I encountered a little later. I was now probably in my early aughts, like 10, 12, 13 kind of a thing. And that was Eiji Yoshikawa's Tale of Musashi. This was written in 1935. It is the Gone with the Wind of Japan. Super important book about a super important character. It's been made into movies and television shows multiple times. Preeminently was the Samurai trilogy, Samurai 1, Musashi Miyamoto in 1954, Duel at Eiji Castle in 1955, and The Duel at Ganro Island in 1956. It's one of the best-selling novels of all time. It's been made into anime, it's been made into manga, it's been made into the story has been told time and time again. There were television series in Japan about this. This is a seminal figure in Japanese culture and also in Japanese literature. And it's a great book. It begins with a boy waking up on the battlefield after having just been injured, and tracks him from becoming a swordsman of some renown. He's then taken in by a monk named Taquan, who sort of teaches him how to be a human and how to be a true samurai. And from there, it's him traveling around the country, taking on this swordsman. He had like 60-something battles over the course of his life, and he won them all. And ultimately, he met a guy on Ganro Island, and very famously battled him with a boat oar. And after that, he put away his sword and sort of became a sort of a philosopher, an artist, and that kind of thing. It's a great book. It's a long book, but boy, it was super important to me when I was growing up as a kid. Third book, I don't have all of them because there's a lot of them. There's 28 titles in all. It's by Joe Lansdale, and that is the Hap and Leonard books. This is actually one of the latter ones. It ran from 1990 and it's still running now. He's still putting books out in 2026. Has to do with two friends that met in Vietnam, Hap Leonard, Hap and Leonard, who Hap is the very thin, slight white guy, and Leonard is a very large, muscular, sort of powerful black man. They met in Vietnam. They became fast friends. They both studied some martial arts together, and now they're back in the South in Nacogdoches, Texas, living their life. And they have a habit of getting into trouble and running into people who need help, and they're only happy to help with that. It's been adapted to a TV series that was fairly popular there for a while. Lansdale himself is a martial artist. He developed a martial art called Shen Chuan. He was inducted into the United States Martial Arts Hall of Fame as Soke, and he was also inducted into the International Martial Arts Hall of Fame. He's won 9 Stokers, nominated for 22 World Fantasies Awards. I have a slew of titles. I'm not going to list them all. Just know that they've all got titles like Two Bear Mambo and Mucho Mojo and Captain's Outrageous and that kind of thing. A host of very cool characters, everything from female assassins to small town sort of mob bosses. Hap is very subtle and very sort of logical, with a sense that he can cross that line into kind of irrational and violent. I mean, Leonard Pine is one of those guys that I always say fights with his face. There's a story in one of the books that someone has moved into a house on Leonard Street, and they're sort of running a crack house, and they want to sort of get rid of that. And so Leonard decides that the best way to do it is the most direct approach. So he goes over and burns the house to the ground. So it's very, very humorous. Their interplay is terrific. It's very amusing, very... it's the way friends talk, and they sort of give each other shit and then that kind of a thing. Very, very cool. Quite enjoyable. Let's see. Number 4. Around my 20s, I encountered this book out of England. It was collected in 1 volume. It was later split into 6 volumes, and that's Clive Barker's Books of Blood. Barker is a legendary writer. He's a filmmaker. He's a visual artist. This is an important book to me because it showed that it was what was possible in the modern short story collection. His characters weren't all cut from the same cloth. Their first time there was a realistic gay couple that I had never encountered in my life, but in the city in the city of the hills had that in spades. Later, it was to be that I met him at a Dark Carnival signing in Berkeley. I've showed the copies of some of his books that I have where they've been signed. And then years later, when I was working for Fangoria, I kind of became the Clive guy, where it seemed like every year I would be assigned to sit down and have a chat with him. We traveled to his house. I did a special episode on that. I did a story time on that on one of the early episodes. Like to think of myself as a friend, but it's been a few years since we've seen each other. Supposedly, I do hear that Brian Fuller, who is renowned in the world of television, and Clive are working on bringing some of the Books of Blood stories to the air, and that would be fantastic. There's been an attempt once or twice to do some of those, to mixed results. But Books of Blood is a wonderful, wonderful short story collection. The stories are varied, they're well written, they're well told, and I think for writers and readers of genre, they are like step one. That and some of the King's short story collections, I would add to that. Great stuff. Let's see, number 5. Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire was released in 1998. Pressfield is the guy who wrote the book that led to the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance, but some of his other books have been historical fiction. Tides of War, Virtues of War. There's a great book called Last of the Amazons that I gave to my daughter to read. He's also done a variety of nonfiction books, The War of Art, Do the Work, and The Warrior Ethos amongst them. This Gates of Fire is essentially the battle of the Spartans against the Persians at Thermopylae. It was detailed in the film 300. Not the book, but the story of that was told in 300. At one point, the book was optioned by George Clooney with Michael Mann attached to direct. But then 300 came out, and that kind of put the kibosh on all of that because the stories are very, very similar. It's a great book. It puts you right there on what Pressfield's called the dance floor, which was where all of the fighting took place. There's tales in there of men fighting hip deep in mud. And then later, as they're talking, you realize that it hasn't rained in that area for a long, long time. And that the water that is making the mud is actually the blood of the fallen. It's a great book. It's an epic book. I would still love to see it made into a movie, but we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Number 6, another really important book for me. It came out in 1982. George R.R. Martin's Fever Dream. This is one of the best vampire novels, I think, ever. I think it rivals Dracula got there first, but this book is amazing. It's written by George R.R. Martin, who, of course, we all know from Game of Thrones, but he also wrote things like Sand Kings and Night Flyers, the Wild Card series. It's a tale of a man named Abner Marsh, who was a riverboat captain, and his boat burnt to the waterline, and now he's sort of adrift. He's wandering around. He's a great riverboat captain, but he's one without a riverboat. Into this walks a man named York, who is kind of, for want of a better word, a dandy. Very pale, very, very sort of well-dressed, and he offers Abner a chance to recapture all of that by building this great new riverboat called the Fever Dream. The plan is to travel up and down the Mississippi River, doing riverboat business, and York and his friends would occupy some of the staterooms. York is a vampire, not to spoil or to bury the lead, who is working on a concoction, like a wine, that he can drink that will satisfy the hunger of needing blood and let him live among man and to create things that are beautiful. He talks a lot about how vampires destroy things and he wanted to build things. On the other side of this equation is a evil vampire named Julian, and as York has Abner Marsh, Julian has Sour Billy Tipton, who's a piece of shit. Not to bury that. And it's these two warring factions that sort of use the fever dream as sort of a focal point. That they clash. Julian comes onto the boat and tries to talk York into joining him. Talks a lot about, like, why would you, a wolf, want to live with the sheep? That kind of a thing. And I can't even tell you, it's fantastic. The moments in this book of the boat, the fever dream slowly going down the Mississippi, and them York learning to pilot it, and just this sort of lazy time at night, drifting down the river, are just fantastic. And then once the action and the story kicks in, it gets even better. I love this book. I'd love to see it made into a movie. I do hear that George R.R. Martin is pushing to have Guillermo del Toro do it, and let me tell you something, that would be a dream come true for me anyway. It's a great book. If you like vampire stories, if you like adventure stories, if you like just beautifully written stories, I highly recommend Fever Dream. Number 7, I've talked about these books before. I'm going to have to reach over here and grab them. And that's the Conan the Barbarian books by Robert E. Howard. This series is also has the work of L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter. They all feature some pretty cool Frank Frazetta paintings on the cover. These are the Ace collections. You can find them online. I'll warn you that this collection is pretty spendy, but they're fantastic. People always ask me, where do I start on this Conan stuff? And I always say the same thing. My favorite Conan story of all time is called The Tower of the Elephant. But you can also find, like on Kindle, you can find complete Conan collections for fairly cheap, a couple bucks. And they're just high adventure. They've never really gotten Conan right in film. Some parts of the Schwarzenegger stuff work. The television show was horrible. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there are aspects of the Momoa one that is quite good. The whole opening of them running through the boys have like sort of a test of manhood with the bird egg. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. That gets close to what the books are like, but and then it goes horribly awry. They are Howard wrote other books like the Cull books, the Solomon Kane books, the Bran McMorn, and a bunch of others. But the Conan books are where he really shines. These, for young Tom growing up, these were really important. I like to say that I got a lot of my moral code, my moral compass, from the Conan books and The Godfather, which tells you all you need to know about that. But they're just absolutely fantastic, and I highly recommend them. They're great for boys, they're great for girls. There are strong female characters throughout. Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, anyone listening here would probably be already hip to what Conan books are all about. Number 8, let's see, Stewart O'Nan in 1999 released this, A Prayer for the Dying. I've talked about this book on this show before. This is an amazing book, not only for mood and how well it's written, but there is something in it that is inherently creepy, that if you blink, you'll miss it. absolutely fantastic. It's a story of a Civil War veteran who comes to a small town to becomes its sheriff, but he's also their undertaker. And as you're getting to know all of the characters within the town and a little bit more about this gentleman, a diphtheria outbreak happens, which turns into a epidemic, which then turns into a fire that is quickly sweeping through the countryside. On one hand, it's going to wipe out the diphtheria thing, but on the other hand, people are dying left and right, and it's left to this Civil War veteran to figure it out. He's there with his wife and child, and yeah, it's fantastic. Someone has described it in some of the things I was reading in preparation for this as a sort of they compared it a lot to the work of Stephen King and also Cormac McCarthy, and I think that comes pretty close. They've also said it marks the deterioration of a good man. I just learned recently that Dara Van Dusen has directed an adaptation in 2026 of this book, starring Johnny Flynn, John C. Reilly, and Kristen Kujak-Thorpe. It's not available in the U.S. yet. The trailer was on YouTube. I can't wait, but it is available. It's been premiered in Germany, and that's pretty cool. Let's see. Number 9. We're going to veer away from fiction now, and we're going to go into more nonfiction stuff, because both of these, the last 2 books, are really, really important for me. 2014, Bessel van der Kolk, MD, did this book, The Body Keeps the Score. He is a Boston-based Dutch psychiatrist and researcher, specializes in PTSD. The book is on the development of the brain, the socialization and integration of how a person becomes a person. It does have its detractors. Some people talk smack about it. We won't listen to them. This book came to me at a time in my life where I was dealing with a lot of stuff. I am a victim of PTSD, CPTSD, a bunch of other stuff. I've been robbed at gunpoint numerous times. I've been tied up and beaten. I've pistol whipped, all sorts of really terrible stuff that we don't need to go into. But this book helped me put it all together. So I always, when I talk to people who have say that they've had trauma in their life, whether it's emotional trauma or physical trauma, this is step 1. This really helped me immeasurably. It's a little scientific, it's a little dry, but ultimately you come away with an understanding of how the brain develops, how the brain integrates things. Or they say at some point, not they, but other people in my life had told me, we are mirrors of our experience, and this book sort of talks about that. So not only do I recommend this as a book that was influential on me, but also to anyone out there dealing with any sort of trauma. If you haven't read this, you definitely should. And then the last book, I don't have with me, but I am wearing the shirt, and that is The Tao of Jeet Kune Do. It was released in 1975 by Hong Kong and Chinese-American martial artist, actor, and philosopher Bruce Lee. I've talked about Bruce Lee's impact on my life on the show before. I'll talk a little bit about it now. I was a young boy dealing with a lot of stuff. I went and I remember seeing Enter the Dragon, and it seems trite when people say, well, that movie changed my life. That movie changed my life. Taught me a lot about, in the midst of all this other stuff, it taught me how to focus, and it brought me to the study of martial arts, which has become, has been big in my life. The book is basically a collection of Bruce's notes, explaining his philosophy and the science behind the martial art of Jeet Kune Do, or AKA the way of the intercepting fist. It was written while he was recuperating from a back injury back in 1970. There's a very famous book out about his fight. You can see it in the biopic Dragon, where he fights someone named Wan Jack Man, who and he injures his back, and there was a time there where they thought that he was never going to be able to walk again, and little by little he regained his ability to do so, and that started the whole cycle of him working on his body and working on his martial art, and really focusing on what it is he wanted to do. This is a seminal treatise not only on, I think, martial arts, but also on how to be a person and how to be a contributing member to a rather chaotic society. So I think that's going to do it. That's 10. I do these shows periodically. I've been doing them a lot on the weekends for some reason. I have a whole giant list here of other topics that I will probably be also doing. I thought I was going to keep this short, but I'm now running at my normal 25 minutes or so. So yeah, please stick around. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. That really helps. Watch all these episodes if you can, all the way to the end. Even if you just turn them on and walk away, just let them play to the end. That really, really helps me with the algorithm. Like and share. Do all the things that the kids tell you to do. Smash that like button. And if you would, please share this to your social media and try to tell a friend. Again, I appreciate you guys so much that you tune in every time that I put up a show. Please, by all means, comment down below and tell me yours. Tell me the books, the 10 books that influenced you, or the 5 books, or whatever you want to do. I'm always on the lookout for things that are interesting and people that that's mostly how I get my information, is people recommending things to me. And then I go and I have a whole list that whenever I go into bookstores, if I go into record stores, that I check on or go through and look. The list is really long, but I'm happy to make it longer. So again, I appreciate you. I'll be back on Monday to do one of our regular shows, and then of course on Wednesday and Friday, and we'll see about more of these specials. So until then, I hope you have a good weekend.